We've entitled today's presentation Navigating Strong Emotions in Your Relationships. And I think it's important always for me to disclose my diversity of hats that I wear, because full disclosure is always a good thing. So academically, I have been on faculty at UCSF for 22 years. I'm what we'd call a lifer. I came to UCSF to do my psychiatry residency in 1999 and fell in love with the institution in the Bay Area and have stayed. I still am active clinically. I run psychotherapy groups for patients living with chronic medical conditions. So that's anybody with active symptoms, no cure. I've been doing that for about 10 years now. I'm also on faculty at UC Berkeley in the UCSF UC Berkeley Joint Medical Program in the School of Public Health, and I've been on faculty there for 20 years. I also work at Merritt University. It's an entirely health sciences university. It's PT, OT, podiatry, physician assistant nursing programs. And we have several campuses in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I'm a simulation educator there. And I am paid half-time to do that kind of work and teaching health professional students. I also work with med ed in med ed technology innovation companies. The first one is Osmosis. I've been there for 4 years and I receive approximately 10% salary support from them. And lastly, I also serve on the advisory board of a patient communication simulators company called PCS, and I'm paid in equity shares based on my hours of service for that company. The reason I think it's important to do this full disclosure is because even though I'm not selling you anything in this talk, it's important to always understand who the person is doing the speaking so you can have a good sense of where they're coming from. So today, obviously, I'm going to be wearing my psychiatrist hat. For those of you that read the description of what we were going to cover today, I think this was Ebenezer's excellent paraphrasing of what I hoped to accomplish. And so seeing that, you're in the right place if that's what you're hoping to get today. So, all right. So what I want to do for you is just give you a sense of how we're going to structure our time together. I'm going to do my slides for less than 30 minutes because, like all Zoom-based groups, the more interactive, the better. And so when we finish those slides and any kind of Q&A, we'll break out into breakout groups that Ebenezer is going to organize and push us all into. And those will be about 20 minutes. Ebenezer will probably send the little, the splash warning about when it's ending and come back to the large group. But we do want to come back to the large group at the end for any kind of wrap up, closing reflections and comments as a large group. That's kind of how we're structuring today. All right, so in thinking about the topic, I figured, well, there's only so much time in 30 minutes. Let's just cover 6 key tips about navigating strong emotions in relationships. And so that should be about right for today's presentation. Okay, so we'll just systematically walk through those 6. All right, the first one is, guess what? You're imperfect. I know this is a shock to all of you because none of you thought you were imperfect, but and you all want to be perfect human beings, but I'm here to tell you I am also imperfect. And the moment you start accepting that, the sooner you'll be able to start accepting that in the other people whose lives are intersecting with yours. So in preparing for this, I just typed in the Google search imperfect and did an image search, and I found these 2 things, which I thought was pretty cool. This the left one is from Imperfect Produce. It's a company that will sell you the products that won't be sold to the grocery stores, because grocery stores would never, ever pay for those carrots because no one would buy them off the shelves, right? They have to be perfect, blemish free in the grocery store. But it turns out the Imperfect Produce says, hey, wait a minute, these are perfectly edible as long as you get past that they don't look like what they're supposed to. And then I don't know anything about this book, but I thought this book was kind of a nice title because we are all imperfect, and that's kind of what makes being human magical, is the fact that we're not perfect, and understanding our imperfections and the imperfections of others around us kind of makes it exciting to be alive. All right, that's it. Key point number 1, you're an imperfect human being. Start accepting that. The moment you start accepting that, the moment all of these other relationships are going to be a lot easier. Okay. Key point number 2, all human emotion is by definition legitimate. The key here is how you express those legitimate emotions. Let's unpack this a little bit. Legitimate, just again, looking at Google image searches, I found a couple of different pictures to put in here. And My kids have read these books called "Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus," and those pigeons remind me of those. If anybody knows those, but so you can see the pigeon on the left is asking for other words for legitimate. But look at all of those. They are sure that a lot of them start with le, but they're all meaning appropriate and allowed to be. Okay, so um, all human emotion is legitimate. So a lot of times people will try to suppress some emotions. Oh, I'm not supposed to feel that way. Yes, you are. You're allowed to feel that way because you're allowed to have human emotions because that's what humans do well as mammals. All right. So the third key point, which builds on that, now that we agree that we're imperfect and we agree that we're legitimately allowed to have lots of emotions, now we get to express them to others. Okay. So the key point here is the I statements. I feel, insert emotion here, right? So in looking for I statement images, these are some examples I found. And what's interesting is that they come from a wide diversity of sources. These are just three that I snagged, but the first one from goodtherapy.org, I feel blank because blank, when blank, what I need is blank. The middle one from inspiredmotherhood.com, and look how you can help your child express big emotions when you use this kind of a I use statements. I feel frustrated when you don't brush your teeth when I told you 3 times. So can you please brush your teeth now? And then the third example here, again, might be a useful in a significant partnered relationship. For example, I feel angry when you ignore me because it hurts my feelings. Next time, please listen to me so that I don't have to feel angry again. I'm talking in this almost like a blasé kind of a way because this is so bloody obvious to shrinks, but I know that it's not necessarily always obvious to non-mental health professionals. So please don't interpret my tone of voice as anything other than you got this. You got this, people. Okay. So key point number 3 is use I statements much more than you use you statement, right? So um I will laugh with you all from my own life, like I feel frustrated with you, my wonderful wife, because you refuse to take out the dishes or put away the dishes, right? Well, it's not really an I statement if I'm blaming her for it, but the point is that there's a two-way street. I could say I feel frustrated you didn't take out the dishes, and she can say I'm sorry, I should have. But she's not going to say, why are you yelling at me for telling me to not empty the dishes, or that I didn't empty the dishes, which leads to key point number 4, saying sorry. So for this one, I just looked up Google image searches for saying sorry, and I'm just going to let them just animate here because there is a ridiculously large number of images on the internet about ways of saying sorry when you're not really saying it. These are just pictures of people saying sorry, right? But there's a hell of a lot of images on the internet here about this, and all of these were just ones that I snagged that I thought were interesting and pretty. But let's just be real, people. The word is one word. Why is it so bloody hard to say? If you feel it, now that we agree that you are allowed to have all human emotions, if you feel remorse or regret, then say it to the people you think you might have hurt or the people that are important to you. Big emotion, but big easy to say it. Why so big easy? Because you have to say it after you feel it, because otherwise the people you love didn't know that you felt it. And so feeling it is a first step, but that's insufficient. You want to be able to actually say it to the people that you love. Now, you could say it by text. I'm not going to be like a Luddite and say it must be in person or it must be on the phone. You can say it by text. It's super more powerful if you say it voice to ear, because then they can pick up on all the intonation. They can hear the sincerity in your voice, which, as you all know, you can't really hear sincerity in a text. Okay. I mean, emojis are good. I'm not saying they're bad. I'm just saying that if when it comes to really big important stuff like the feeling of sorry, it's probably worth actual real-time synchronous or at least a voice recording, because your voice carries so much timbre. Okay. So that's key point number 4. All right. Number 5. What the heck do I do with all my negative emotions? So what do I mean by negative emotions? So if you haven't seen this before, there's some great images of feelings wheel. This is just one of many. I just typed in Google feelings wheel image, and this is the one that I picked just because it fit nicely on my slide. But if you can't see it, it's a poor quality sort of recreation. In the center, there's 6 core feelings, starting up at 12 o'clock. It looks like powerful, peace, and as we go clockwise, peaceful, sad, mad, scared, and joyful. And then the outer circles are more precise words than that resonate out from those key 6 feelings. All right, so I've drawn it this way on purpose because the bottom half are what we would consider quote unquote negative emotions, right? Sad, scared, mad at their core. Now, if you don't own that as a human, you're allowed to have all of the bottom half of the wheel, then you're effectively half a human because you're cutting off half of the range of the beautiful range of human emotion that you are allowed to have because you're a human, right? And what I think is really, really valuable about these negative emotions is the precision of the English language with ways that you can say things. So if we just look at the sad wedge, right? Are you sad, or are you in the second tier actually guilty or ashamed or depressed or lonely or bored or tired? All of those are like derivatives or more precise terms than the word sad. Or if we spill it out further to those other ones, are you remorseful, or are you feeling stupid? Are you feeling inferior? Are you feeling isolated, apathetic, or sleepy, right? So all of those are much more precise emotional words than the word sad. And that's beautiful. Look at all this range of human emotion that you get to describe. So what do you do with your negative emotions? I want you to be precise with your word. What negative emotion are you actually feeling? Are you mad, or are you just frustrated? Not just frustrated, excuse me. Are you mad, or if we go straight down at 6 o'clock, are you angry, or are you frustrated? Maybe you're frustrated. It's not really that you're mad, you're frustrated. And what are you frustrated about? Well, gosh, if you understand that, that feeling is far less overwhelming and not something you need to suppress or shove down, but actually something that you can own as what you are feeling, okay? So key point number 5, I want you to be precise with the words you use to describe the emotions you feel, especially on the negative half of that emotions wheel. All right. Last one is a metaphor I've used for years in my clinical practice of a pressure cooker. So for those of you who don't know what a pressure cooker is, it's a pot that looks a little bit like this, and it has a valve. Some of them have a valve. This is a fancy one that has a valve on the top that tells you what the pressure inside it. It's a sealed top, and then that little black thing at the top is actually a steam valve, and it lets off steam little by little as the pressure inside the pot builds. So I've always found this pressure cooker pot metaphor a beautiful metaphor describing how we express our emotions or let off steam, if you will. So as just to sort of really drill the metaphor home, the pot itself is your skull, okay? Fixed size, there's no way to change the size of your skull. The bottom, the heat outside the pot are external stressors. So we may or may not have the power to turn up or down the heat that's on our skulls. Like you got a test coming up, you can't necessarily turn down that because the test is a time sensitive thing that's imminent, right? But the steam coming off is your feelings. And the pressure cooker works by letting off the steam little by little, so that way it doesn't build up to the pressure that it explodes, and the pot explodes in a big sort of dramatic made for TV or movie kind of thing, right? So your feelings have to be let out in a controlled way, so that way they don't build up. And the more you keep them bottled up inside, the more pressure builds up inside that fixed size skull of yours. And the healthier thing to do is to let out those feelings. And the key here is to figure out what is the healthy way that I let out feelings. And so talking about your emotions is one really good way to let out feelings. But there's plenty of other wellness strategies that you guys are going to learn through Shimmer and through these other workshops, and things that you do that let off steam, right? Lots of people love athletics because it does that for people. You know, exercising is a great way for natural endorphins to kick in and you feel better. Watching movies, doing things that give you joy, simply to do them because they make you happy. Those are great ways to let off feelings of frustration or anger or disappointment or sense of inferiority or whatever it may be. So, talking about feelings is a great strategy so that they don't take over and build up steam. Okay, so key here is how you let off your steam. It has to be done in a safe way, right? You don't want to explode at somebody. You're frustrated with your significant other, so you hit them. Not safe, not cool, not a good idea, right? You don't want to let your disappointment be so built up so much so that you lash out at a friend with a nasty tweet. You don't want to be so sad and depressed that you think about hurting or killing yourself and actually attempt to injure or kill yourself. You want to be able to let off your emotional steam in safe, healthy ways. Which leads to the last slide, which is what you're going to do next in these breakout groups. This is, you're going to be thinking about healthy ways to let off steam, and or to, I'll just come back to the 6 tips. Think about how you can apply these 6 tips in your own lives.